Hello, everybody, and welcome to Science in the Soul, episode 11. I am your host, Dear James, joined by my fabulous co-host, the Lady Jaclyn. And today's episode, we are bringing you the topic of consciously creating the life you live and thus your legacy, and how life purpose and soul destiny and everything play into this on a daily basis, really. And so, hello, the Lady Jaclyn. How are you?
Hello. Oh, it's so good to be here with everybody today. As always, if you're joining us live, or if you're joining or listening to the replay, please send us a comment or drop a comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from. So it's so interesting because as you kind of like go through, I suppose, your day-to-day life, you kind of have to remind yourself like you're creating this
Constantly
life, right?
co-creating, right?
You're constantly co-creating. I mean, like, I was literally today knocked down with such a headache, and I thought to myself, okay, universe, like I've partially created this, I know, but then I also know that there's a reason for it. And so it's like this, I want to say, permission slip to kind of stop playing victim and kind of go, okay, hold on, you actually do have free will, you actually do have a choice in the matter. And I was thinking about it the whole day, because obviously we knew that this was the theme, this was the topic, and I was like, that's so powerful actually to ask the question, like, what is my legacy? Like, if I had to go tomorrow or today in this moment, like, what would be my legacy? Like, what would I be leaving behind? Like, what would people remember?
And that's the power. That is the absolute power of today's show, is what you just said. If I go today, if I leave this lifetime in this moment, what am I leaving behind? And the leaving behind isn't, the monetary, the physical, the belongings. It's what's the indelible mark, impression that you are leaving, and the one you're taking with you. Because that is, that's what we come into life with. It is what we leave life with. It is those moments, memories, the impacts, the ripple. What is it? And that's why this topic is so powerful. And, I just want to say, because you probably didn't hear my little drum roll for you. I was like, with my fingers as after the announcement of you. And I was like, oh, that's funny. They probably heard that.
Yeah.
You deserve a drum roll, the Lady Jaclyn. So for everybody listening, welcome and thank you for joining us. It is Science in the Soul with the Lady Jaclyn and Dear James. And today, episode 11, is about consciously co-creating the life you live and thus your legacy. So, Jaclyn, let's jump into this, because this was a really powerful topic for us after last week's show, on Wednesday's show, the weekly wisdom and everything. We were immediately moved to talk about this and how it impacts, because it's so prevalent with everything going on right now in the world. This consciously creating your life and thus your legacy. People don't think in the moment that they're creating their legacy. They're in the mindset of, they're either in the storm or they're in the calm, or, we're running around doing our daily lives with little, consciousness, awareness of what's the legacy I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because it's true. It's like it brings me to the topic of survival mode versus thriving, right? So when you're in survival mode, you're kind of just getting by, you're getting through. Each day is kind of going, okay, I just need to survive, or I need to get through. Or it's, again, looking at, we spoke about in the previous show, like you mentioned, the weekly wisdom and insights, about not focusing on the destination, but actually enjoying the process, the journey, right? And when you're constantly when you're in survival, you're wanting to get by, you're wanting to get through so that you can arrive, right?
Exactly.
And then you're totally not thinking about the bigger picture, the overall overview of what's actually happening, the truth behind why you're here in the first place. So it's like shifting that mindset from constantly surviving to going, hold on, I don't just want to get by so that I want to say feel better at the end, or do better, or my life can look better, or so that so that it can be better later on, but kind of like creating that reality, taking full responsibility of going, okay, hold on, how can my life look good right now? How can I feel good right now? Because that's then the starting point in the shift of not focusing on the destination, but actually going through the process. Huge. I mean, like, we're saying it like it's so easy, and I think people forget sometimes that that's the most important thing. It's like the most important step. It's the first step to actually the awareness, that shift from going, okay, hold on, I can actually do more than just survive or get by.
Right. Right, because the legacy aspect here, so the consciously creating your life and thus your legacy. So the legacy part is what's left behind. How do our colleagues, friends, loved ones, and so forth, the world, anybody that's involved with us, how do they see us? And that's based on how we create our life. It's based on our actions. It's not words, it's actions. It's your, they often say it's like the Russian nesting doll. It's like, what's in your center? What's at your center? And so we want to break this down for everybody, because and I have a really incredible, I shared this with the Lady Jaclyn when we chose this topic, and when it chose us, and it's based on an experience. However, the literalness of it, the practical, the literal, is so simple, right? We said this yesterday, it's KISS. Keep it simple, silly. In every moment, we are co-creating. Are we doing it consciously? That's really the linchpin. Because when we do it right, when we're doing it consciously, Jaclyn, then we're mindful. We are conscious. We are aware of our actions, our words, our deeds, our energy. It doesn't mean that we're perfect. It doesn't mean that we're saints or we're angelic 24/7. It's just, to what degree do we rebound, and how quickly do we rebound? What is the purity of our actions, our intentions, these types of things? What do we do when no one's looking? And there was this, I'm being reminded in the US, previous administration, I believe it was William, Attorney General for the United States. And there was a lot of stuff going on. And at one point they said to him, why are you not concerned about what's happening? Are you not worried about your legacy? And his answer was, no, I'll be dead. So it tells you in that moment what his legacy is, because he just told you. So this is, these are the choices we have, right? These are the choices that we have, because otherwise you would say, am I, consciously, you would be, oh, let me investigate, let me remedy, let me do something, as opposed to saying, well, I'll be dead, who cares? Was basically the response. So I wouldn't want that legacy, but it's the one it's the one he provided for everyone. So are we being conscious in our actions, in our words, in our deeds, and our thoughts? It's a heavy topic. It's a big topic. It's not necessarily heavy, it's big, because it really says, from a soul perspective, or perhaps from a ego, mind, personality perspective, which one are you choosing? Is your legacy about ego, mind, personality, material, all of these things? or is it about the soul? And that's how the soul destiny and your life purpose and soul destiny play in. Which one are you leading with? Which one are you operating from? Powerful stuff, Jaclyn. Powerful stuff.
It is, and it's going to hit everybody differently depending on where they are.
Yes.
So it is true. Like what you're saying is 100% true. And it's kind of just, again, being present in that moment and coming from a state of awareness of what is the bigger picture. And we're in that energy at the moment. We spoke about that in the Wednesday show with the collective energy. So it's so fitting that this topic kind of, was brought to us, and we felt inspired to kind of talk about. Because it really just on a practical level, it just kind of gets everyone to awaken or get them to, for me, it was like this reminder of going, actually, hold on, don't get stuck or I want to say swallowed by the mundane of the everyday, day-to-day living, the crisis, all the things that are happening that you can kind of get swallowed by or like overly consumed by. It's kind of just going, there is a bigger picture. And that's where you got to focus constantly. And that's that shift from, surviving or thriving, and looking at, do you believe that you're co-creating your reality? Because then there's a certain element of like a sense of responsibility or ownership that you've got to take, where you're kind of going, okay, what does that look like?
And it's coming to me in the moment of, there's a belief, really, the word legacy. So we see it in the frame of maybe more public, meaning a public person, a celebrity, a politician, somebody of note, that, that's the only time that really the legacy, what's their legacy? So we see it in a grander way. We experience it in a grander, more public way. And the reminder, because that's a misnomer. The misnomer is every one of us is creating a legacy. Every single one of us. So to bring it down to every single, and so, I would be asking everyone listening, do you believe that you're creating a legacy as just the private, citizen? Because if you do, then you're going to be consciously mindful of actions. You're going to put the two together. And if you don't believe it, then, and you think it's, for grander affairs, grander public persona people, then you're unaware, you're unconscious of the fact that you're creating a legacy. You are consciously creating your life and thus your legacy. And that's the wake up call. That's, like we said in yesterday's show, the ringing, once the bell's rung, you can't unring the bell. Are we living our lives? Are you living your life from a place of being aware that you're creating your legacy? And what is that? What is that legacy? And we see this, when you deal with mortality, when you see people on their deathbed, they'll speak to you in the most pure, honest truth. All of the, I wish I would have, the regrets, it's just laid out bare. The point would be to not wait. The point would be to live those moments every day.
And then it also brings, or it kind of like sets the standard or sets the tone for the theme of kind of like soul connections and karma, and you reap what you sow, and that idea of, because the one thing that's really coming up for me is that idea of going, no, but I didn't choose this because, like, I can't change the person, for example, that I'm in a relationship with, or if I had a different career, or there's so many. There's an easier outlet of kind of going, it's easy to, I want to say, not take responsibility for co-creating your life, right? So if you look at the practicality of how everything plays out, it's so easy to be like, no, if I was married to a different person, okay, yes, bearing in mind I did make the choice or whatever the case is, but if they were just a little bit different in this, then this and this and this would change, or there's this kind of like, it's this quick I don't know if it's like part of the human experience of kind of going, hold on, am I coming from a place of really going, I co-create my reality, and letting go of trying to control what it looks like based on I needing to have the human experience. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like you kind of, sometimes you can't bypass what's already waiting for you, like what you're designed for, based on the notion of what you desire, but also based on the like the karmic relationships, or the wisdom that you, as on a soul level, like the soul contract that you wrote, kind of chose to kind of go, okay, I really want to learn this, or I really want to lean into that, right?
And you just said it. I mean, are we living our lives? Are we coming from a place of responsibility or a place of excuse, victim, victimhood? Because we are co-creating. And the issue and the difference is consciously co-creating says I'm open, I am open and accepting of responsibility. Choosing everything I choose from a place of responsibility, consciousness, awareness. What are my intentions? How is that going to affect somebody? Or is it all happening to me? And thereby I have, it's the blame game and excuses and so forth. And again, I and it's not to harp on this, but it's so powerful. It's like, and thus that's your legacy. So your legacy may be victimhood and blaming and excuses and so forth, never taking responsibility. Is that the legacy you want? Versus, oh no, I got to roll up my sleeves, got to, okay, let me look at, and it's not look at the other person, right, Jaclyn? We talk about this all the time. It's, are you willing to look at yourself? And then, because that's the first step, are you willing to look at yourself? And then the second step is, and then take responsibility for what you see, feel, experience. Third step is then to be open to the change, be open to receiving. How do I go about changing this? All of that is consciously creating. And that then creates a legacy where people interact with you and they go, wow, that person is really conscious, that person is really loving and giving, or that person is accepting and aware. It creates a beautiful legacy. And because it's not just our personalities, it's it's the action, it's how we interact, it's how we live. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And just saying hello to Haley joining us. And if you are joining us live, please drop a note in the comments so that we know you're there. And tell us throughout the show, tell us what you feel. What are you feeling about consciously creating your life and thus your legacy? How does the word legacy come into play? Does it come into play? Is this ringing bells for you? Is this making you, think more about it? And thus, as you were saying, Jaclyn, the soul contracts too, how karma, soul contracts, life purpose, soul destiny. Because again, most of us, right? A lot of people will go through and say, I don't know what my purpose is. And I often say with clients and everything, there's many purposes. Our lives have many purposes. It's not a singular note. And so look to pluralize the word purpose. It's, what are my purposes? You might be a spouse, a partner, a best friend, to many or some, or you might volunteer. Those are all purposes. And then the purposes changes. Empty nesters, right? Our parents raise us and everything, all the kids leave the home, and all of a sudden, 20 years in, or 24 years in or something, with kids ranging in age, and all of a sudden empty nest. Their entire purpose has been raising children. They've been raising us. And then all of a sudden it's like, who am I? What's my next purpose? It's a beautiful example of this.
You know what I've noticed, because obviously with human design, what's so beautiful is that you're able to really identify, um, well, your purpose, like the story behind your purpose, or the story of your purpose, right? And as you unfold and as you unlock, like kind of, and start to embody what this purpose actually looks like, it's so interesting to see the mindset behind, or the mindset that someone's going to go into through this purpose of kind of asking the question of what my purpose is, right? Because we're again conditioned, and it's interesting to see how people place so much emphasis again on purpose, right? It's because they're constantly searching for that fulfillment, and then they ask the question like, what is my purpose? Like, what is the reason for being here in the first place, right? And what I notice is it's kind of, you get people that are coming with the notion of purpose is again something I attain. It's a destination. I have to reach it, right? Instead of actually fulfilling it each and every single day by being the highest expression of yourself. So there's like two versions of people on their journey kind of embracing this notion of what is my purpose. And when you're coming again from that idea of purpose is not something you go and find, it's something that you live every single day by being the highest expression of yourself. So the first thing really to understanding your purpose is understanding who you are. And this is the beautiful thing with human design, is it kind of gets you to really understand who you are, and then you can start tapping into, okay, like the questions like, what is the legacy, what I'm actually leaving behind. What's so interesting when you were speaking is my brain started thinking about the question of, obviously when you're a parent or you have children, you're going to come at this from a very different angle because you have kids, right? And I was just really interested to see, or to understand, or to know, and I kind of try to step into my mom's shoes of going, what she would answer when asked the question like, what is your legacy, like what are you leaving behind, what are you focusing on, right? What is your purpose? And what's so beautiful, and sometimes we have these beautiful conversations as well, is when you're a parent and you kind of watching your kids also walk a similar, route or path than you did, and you're kind of wanting to steer them again, and then there's that sense of responsibility of going, okay, hold on, like they're also needing to live out their purpose, they need to live out their legacy, their life, their destiny, and kind of taking a step back. But there's like that fine line in parenting. So there's a lot of themes and kind of questions and subheadings that spin off of this main topic of kind of like your legacy. When you're really looking at purpose, what I've noticed is shifting. The first thing is kind of shifting from looking at purpose as being a destination and kind of going, I'm fulfilling my purpose, the full story of every aspect of purpose, because purpose isn't just one thing, because it's not one location of going to go find this one thing, right? It's truly, it's going, I'm living on my purpose because I know who I am, because I'm aware that by being the highest expression of myself, because I know who I then am able to truly embody that purpose, whatever that is, on a day-to-day basis.
And I'm open to seeing who I am. So from a human design, from a human design standpoint, from an astrological standpoint, from these divination tools that we have, we are able to see, let's say, the construct, right? The pieces. And then our purpose, our purpose is the sum of the parts. See, people get stuck on, well, I'm not fulfilling my purpose, because I'm not doing something I love or something like that. Okay. However, as you just articulated so brilliantly, our purpose is, I'm fulfilling my purpose in this moment. In this moment, I might be sitting there, as you had mentioned yesterday, with no water and just sitting and taking in the moment. You were fulfilling your purpose. And that is one fractal, one piece, one petal of the sum of the parts of our purpose. The beauty is in the allowing, in the unifying, and this was a big piece of yesterday's show on Weekly Wisdom and Insights. It was about unity, unifying ourselves inside out, so that what we're experiencing outwardly is a reflection and a direct manifestation of what we've consciously created internally. And that's so it's so powerful, Jaclyn, because that's really, purpose is not one note. It's not one thing. It's constantly evolving and changing from the most simple, in this moment, like you just said, I'm fulfilling my purpose by being in this moment, to a grander purpose. Maybe you're teaching children, you're raising children, you're creating a life-saving drug, or you're a school teacher, you're nourishing people. It really comes back to purpose is about living, is about service. And again, is our service selfless or selfish? There's a difference, because when we do things, and when they're selfless, when our actions are selfless, when our intentions are pure, we're living a higher octave, a higher version of ourselves. We're consciously co-creating. It doesn't mean that we don't do things we love. Yes, and because we love them. Okay. However, is there a greater, when they're selfless, they have their own, it's a higher octave. They have their own, it has its own energy. It feels good. It feels good to the person doing it, right? It feels good to those that receive it around them, because it's selfless. There's something higher about it. People resonate. They come to it. When it's selfish, that energy speaks. It typically repels. People push back. They're like, that's not in the right zone. So it's a very, it's about service.
And then, you know what's super fascinating is when you're saying it's about service, but then it's kind of going again, asking the questions of where you're, or which angle, what energy you're coming from, right? So it's kind of when you ask yourself questions like, "What is my purpose?" What's driving your need to find out, right? Is it the need because you feel a lack and you feel a scarcity and you want to feel fulfilled and therefore you want to feel more of, or do you want to feel a part of something, or do you truly want to actually, I want to say, come back to yourself, right? So you can fully be present in the beauty of you being the highest expression of yourself as a human being. I mean, there's no greater example than that sentence kind of gives you, right? That's two different energies. So again, it's like that but I suppose also then that selfishness, that is not necessarily a bad thing, because that's also what drives people and motivates them to be of service. And I would rather you do it from a selfish place than not at all. You know what I mean? So that it's interesting, actually. You can look at it from very different angles.
Yes, it's just the issue, I would argue, is when you do something so it can be selfish and be pure, is what you're saying. And so, yes, when, this would be my argument, when it is for the greater good, when it is then at its root selfless. So we're doing something, say from a selfish perspective, we love to do it. Okay, maybe that's considered selfish. And yet the intention is pure. And so thereby, in a sense, it becomes selfless because you love it. It's the purity. It's only, the shadow, right? When the selfishness is a shadow intention, a shadow element. It's the doctor's creed, do no harm. Well, when you're harming others, and thereby the intention is selfish, it's to harm, then it's not selfless, and thereby doing it, one could argue, is not great, right? I mean, it's because, again, it's creating a legacy. It's creating an indelible, now everything, of course, is neutral and divine. I get it. We talk about this all the time. It's so nothing is really good nor bad. It is divine and neutral. It's just, we have a choice. We can learn through the shadow, right, Jaclyn? I mean, We learn often through the shadow. And oftentimes we learn in a greater way because it impacts us so deeply in a negative aspect. It's the 51 shock. There's that 50. It's a shock element. In the I Ching, it's shock and awe. Thunder, shock and awe. Thunder, shock and awe can be both positive, can be from a love standpoint, a selfless, generous standpoint, or it can be from the shadow. Both are available, right? Both are there. It's just which, I think most people are going to say, okay, may I have the positive shock and thunder and awe as opposed to the shadow one.
That, and then I read something, I got an email from, I can't remember who it was now, but they were actually talking about shadows, like the shadow self, right? And kind of healing through the shadow self. But also they placed emphasis on the fact that we've been so conditioned to be like, we've got to be okay all of the time, or we've got to, I want to say it's not a good thing to show or share your shadows, right? And kind of just like bear with me here, but it's literally, it's people. I mean, look at why social media is doing so well is because everyone, it's kind of like 1% of your actual life, and people kind of forget that it's only 1% of your actual life, of everybody's life actually, and it's like the highlight reel of your life, right? You're hardly ever going to see people really showing the reality of what's really happening. Even reality shows are curated in certain ways. So if you're looking at the question going, life's always about polarity. Light to understand darkness, and darkness to understand light, and exactly like what you're explaining. But it's maybe also looking at the idea of being okay with needing to and having to experience the shadows in order to understand and fully get
Absolutely.
who you actually are, so that you can truly step into your purpose. So it's almost like,
Absolutely.
in order to really fulfill your purpose, or feel fulfilled, or leave a legacy that is the authentic legacy that we're speaking about, is you've got to understand that there's both sides, and you've got to embrace both sides. You've got to be okay with both sides, and not just for yourself, but for other people around you, and for the collective. That what's happening in the collective, like the shifts that are needed, the changes, and like you said, sometimes it's that literally carpet get pulled from under you, but then again, which angle are you approaching it from? The understanding that actually, hold on, maybe that was needed. I can't see it right now, but looking back I will, because that's how I'm designed. Or it's kind of going, oh, I can't do this anymore, kind of like the victim side. So again, it's also, we need to get to a place where we hold space for ourselves and people around us.
Yes.
That it's okay to experience the shadow, and then learning and equipping ourselves and the people that are around us, empowering, because it's all about like the unity and the synergy, and co-creating together ways of dealing with whatever you need to deal with at any given point, in any given time. The shadow, like the emotions, allowing,
right,
like truly actually understanding emotions.
Yes.
Because the emotions are dictating your behavior and your decisions, which then in turn, creates your legacy and allows you to truly fulfill your purpose or not. So the it's almost like we're getting back to the root of going, it's okay to express shadows. I mean, that's a big topic in of itself. Like, do you feel okay to truly tell people, I'm not okay right now, I need some space, or I'm not okay right now, I need some help? Like, this
right.
is what this looks like, or I need, that's in of itself, that's a really, really big, like theme.
Because again, it's a massive reminder for all of us. The light and the shadow is there in equal measure for us. And it's never about eradicating darkness, the shadow. It's not about eradicating or ignoring, not experiencing, as the Lady Jaclyn is articulating and speaking to. What we're meant to do is purify, harmonize both the light and the shadow. It's to remember, again, the light came from the void. From the purity of the darkness, from the purity of this raw force, this raw energy, came the light, the refined energy. So it's not about eradicating one over the other. It's not about that. It's about yin yang, harmonizing and balancing our light and our shadow, utilizing both energies for a higher outcome, a higher octave, a higher self. And it's, as Haley had said, the difference between pleasing the ego and serving your soul purpose. Exactly. Both are, so if we're locked in ego, mind, personality, selfishness, if we're operating from the void leading, then you want to utilize it to become consciously create a different outcome, a higher outcome. If you're too much in the light, just dripping of service and so forth, one might say, again, are you doing that from a place of selfless purity? The purities are all good, and is it selfless, or is it an ego aspect because I need to be seen, I need to be loved, and so forth? These are the conversations we want to have with ourselves so as to consciously create a better life, which then creates a beautiful legacy. And the legacy is the ripple. This is important. It's not celebrity. It's not that. It's profound because it's the ripple. It's the indelible mark we leave with everyone we touch, everyone, that ripple. And it is the piece that we take with us. It is not the material world. So philanthropy, these types of things, and it's in every moment. How am I interacting? What are the words I choose? What are the actions I'm choosing? How am I interacting with others? How am I interacting with myself? What, as you just said, Jaclyn, what am I ignoring? A shadow element, whether it's an emotion or an action or a thought or whatever. Am I just trying to blank it out? Or am I open to experiencing it, receiving it, so as to release, purify it, reshape things, remold and shape? Ooh, and isn't that amazing when it changes your purpose? All of a sudden you're like, oh. I mean, it's fascinating. Look at Matthew Shepard's mother is coming in the U.S. He was a young college, just fresh in college, gay gentleman, and was taken out, brutally beaten and everything, and died, left tied to a fence post and died, left for dead. Tragic. And yet it was the catalyst for his mother to become the spokesperson, to take the tragedy and turn it into a purpose that, had it not happened, very unlikely that she would have had the cause or the need or the inspiration, the impetus to do it, to rise to such a public state, to ensure, to talk about it, to shine light on it, to purify it, transcend it. It's fascinating, painful, and fascinating.
Very big questions and a big,
isn't it?
Big kind of like topic.
It's a huge topic.
Where we just asked the question, so what's your legacy? Just kind of left it there.
Right, and no, we knew, right?
It's really big energy.
It's big energy, and we knew that.
There's a lot of, and there's a lot of spin-off of where you can actually take the conversation and kind of like what approach you can have towards it. But I think there's been a lot of takeaways. There's been a lot of like kind of mic drop moments and like and contemplation, because there's never been a better time than now that we're having conversations like this, that we ask ourselves big questions like this, because this is the time where things are speeding up, like you mentioned already. We mentioned each week in the collective energy updates, we're building on this beautiful story. It's like we're watching this journey unfold, right? And it's not about getting to a destination, because each week we're literally, it's like we're living out this the magic, the purity, the juiciness, like I like to say.
The juiciness, the opportunity.
No better way to explain it, right?
The opportunity.
Exactly, the opportunity. And it's just a reminder. I think the one thing that the reason we also felt drawn and called, well, at least for me as well, is or at least is the reminder for everyone to kind of know that you've got free will. You are co-creating, no matter what it looks like. If you don't like what's happening in your life, take a step back and go, okay, what do I need to learn from this? Because I've created this so that I can transform, so I can get to the next level of who I'm supposed to be in this life, who I'm designed to be. What's my highest expression? I can only get there, like you told a beautiful story, I can only get there. She could only fulfill her highest expression because of something traumatic that happened. She didn't choose it that way, but her soul chose to up level in that way because of the traumatic event, So sometimes you need a little bit of a catalyst.
Right.
Sometimes you need a little bit of a, like unwavering partner, or kind of going, okay, so wow, like that was not what I anticipated, when getting into this relationship or having this friendship, and then on a side note as well, what really came through is kind of being okay with not being for everybody, if that makes sense. It's kind of like you're gonna get because when you're looking at legacy, we're always like, I want to make a difference. Like the first thing for me was like, I want to help the world, I want to make a difference, I want to, and then I go, hold on, am I okay with certain people looking or thinking of me or remembering me or kind of going, no, it isn't for me? Well, yeah, because I understand myself now.
Absolutely. Because the legacy is the one you leave. However, it's not about what other people think or value. That's not, because again, when you're sitting in a place of purity with yourself, and we have, all the way back to the Egyptians. I'm mindful of, the Egyptians upon crossing over the river, the Styx, the river, and Osiris would greet you on the other side and weigh your heart, your soul, against the weight of a feather. So this, all the way back to the Egyptians, there is a profound consistency here of living life lightly, meaning well, purely, good. How that rippled, and ultimately that is the legacy. But doing so from a place of authenticity. We're all, we're like art. It's not for every single person. The difference is it harmful? Are you causing harm? And is that the legacy? And I don't want to end the show or leave the show, Jaclyn. So if you'll give me this grace, I want to just quickly tell this story about Alfred Nobel, because this was so paramount to, and it really epitomizes this topic. Alfred Nobel is often known and remembered for the Nobel Peace Prize. That is his most iconic memory, what he's known for, his legacy. However, that was not going to be his legacy. So he patented dynamite. He, as a scientist, and I love this, science in the soul, he's a scientist. He's got 355 patents under his name and so forth. And he was the one that patented the use of glycerin. He figured out how to utilize glycerin to create dynamite. Initially, he did so as to advance society, meaning to pave ways for development. You can blast out ridges and put roads through and so forth. That was his original. A secondary thing that he had was that he also, his family, his father came from this line of steel work and so forth. Well, all of a sudden he also does work with cannons, artillery. So you've got dynamite and artillery. Fast forward, his brother Ludwig dies. And the press confuses his brother for himself, for Alfred. And all of the obituaries in the press and everything, in French, they called him the merchant of death. That what he had created, what he had done, killed more people faster than ever before. Because what he had taken, what he had co-created, had been utilized in a manner, in a shadow manner, a negative manner. And literally, when you research him over and over and over again, you'll read the articles, it pained him so deeply that this was his legacy, that he was going to be forever known as the merchant of death, for the person that killed more humans, that his life works and patents and everything had been something based on the confusion of his brother's death, being his brother, not him. It gave him the opportunity, we've spoke about in this episode 11, of utilizing the shadow to alter your course, to see something, to not ignore it, but to utilize it in the most positive way, the most impactful way. And that is why we have he dedicated, he said, I have to fix this. I cannot leave this as my legacy, because it was never the intention. And yet it's the result. And thereby, how can I take this and change it and do something for the greater good, so that ultimately his legacy became the Nobel Peace Prizes, these in science and all these in philanthropy, all these different things. So it's a really powerful story, an example of consciously creating your life and thus your legacy. It's just for me, it's a mic drop. Boop.
It is. And it's a beautiful reminder as well, that it's not, you've always got choices. And that sometimes It's not like a second chance, but it's almost like maybe that was his destiny as well, to kind of have that experience of going, oh, hold on, wait, I actually could foresee what my legacy looks like. Let's course correct. Let's actually create something better, which is really beautiful. So,
and perhaps that is the linchpin for everybody listening about this show. If you were to see yourself posthumously while living, which is exactly what he had the opportunity to do, how would you course correct? Would you be happy with your life, your legacy, what you've co-created and so forth? Or would you course correct? What would you need to do? Because it's funny, you see it in movies where somebody, they die and then they go to their own funeral and everything, and you hear about people, they start hearing about how people spoke of them and everything.
Story.
Right? And it's, it's comedic, and it's typically in a comedic fashion. And yet it's very powerful, because it gives the person the opportunity to see in that moment, how are we viewed? And again, it's not about being loved by everybody or changing yourself to not be authentic and so forth. And that's not the lesson. The moral of the story, though, is, see, right there, bam! No, the moral of the story is,
I kicked my own thing.
But the moral of the story is self-reflection, in the sense of truth, authenticity, the legacy based on the life you lived, that you created. That's,
loving yourself and loving the life that you created.
Absolutely. Because it is about love. That is the whole point. It is about loving the life you've created in a way that, again, you would, most of us, there are many that don't. We mentioned it earlier in the show. Most of us, though, care about the legacy we leave. And that can be, again, it can be in the simplest, most pure, beautiful form. Did you show up every day and tend to whatever purpose, task you created, you were afforded and created, and you did it in a way that touched people's lives. It doesn't have to be grand celebrity, epic change the world. It can be in that present everyday moment, that purpose. So, woo! Thank you all for such an incredibly rich and beautiful show and topic, and for your participation and grace, because it is a big topic, and it certainly has me thinking and being mindful. And doesn't mean we're perfect, right? It does not mean we're perfect, and it does not mean that we're going to be perfect in every moment. But it does afford us that wake up, to be mindful in that way and to live accordingly.
Absolutely. As always, I absolutely loved our time together. Love the space, love the energy.
Always, 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 the Lady Jaclyn, and all of you listening and joining us from around the globe. Thank you so much for affording us the opportunity to have these discussions and come together. It is truly an honor and a privilege for the Lady Jaclyn and I. And again, if there are topics that you'd like to discuss on Science in the Soul, please send us a comment, put a comment in to the show, or send us a DM, or however you might want it, so that we actually are addressing things that you want to hear or you're inquisitive about, and we'll do our best. We'll listen. As we do, the Lady Jaclyn and I will listen and go as guided and see what the unseen and the human design and how it all comes together to offer us this, ongoing opportunity of wisdom and insight and so forth.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a beautiful weekend and week, and we'll see you next week on Wednesday.